Hi, my dear Astro family. Today we are going to be discussing Jupiter moving stationary direct. I think we are all excited about that. Now I have broken down the meaning of that for all 12 signs in my weekly forecast, so we are not going to be doing that. But I highly recommend listening to this video from the beginning to the end so that you can understand how Jupiter functions, especially because it's stationing direct on 15 degree of Cancer. And that's exactly where we've got a very powerful fixed star called Sirius. So I want to introduce Sirius as well as a little bit the archetype of Jupiter and how it might be playing out on a personal level. I think we all need a bit of a luck right now in the current political climate. So I think let's look at this from an uplifting point of view. But I also would like to invite you to join my membership program. The first month is half price off. So you can check out my teaching style. You can get up to, well, all my courses and webinars can be available at any time you would like to watch an astrological video. I have got about 250 courses and webinars all together, so everyone would find something for their own level, so you can master your chart better. There is nothing better when you understand your psychological motives. And of course, if you would like to have a reading with me, go on my website, AstroViktor.com, and check it out. The other thing that I would like to ask you is please subscribe to my channel. 60% of my viewers are still non-astrological part of my community. So I would like you to be on board with me. But let's have a look at what is exactly happening. You know, Jupiter is a massive planet. It goes stationary. Stationary means it appears stand still from our perspective before it's kind of like starting to pick up certain type of speed. Now, in real life, this is not the case, but it looks like from the Earth's perspective. And when there is a stationary planet, that becomes very concentrated, super heavy as well. Basically, you can imagine that that's the only planet which is in spotlight in that moment. Now, Jupiter will be sitting on that 15 degree the entire March. So this is actually super important. And in the sign of Cancer. Now, Jupiter is traditionally considered to be at its strongest and most beneficial. It's the state of exaltation in astrology in the sign of Cancer. So having Sirius right next to it, which is the brightest star in our night sky, basically it's a powerhouse of protective and expansive energy, basically. So now, what is Sirius? Sirius is the greatest good star. It comes with high honors, unexpected success. So when Jupiter sits here, the practical manifestation usually involves, well, some type of scaled up nurturing. This is going to be affecting you the most if you have got any planets, especially on 15 degree of Cancer or the water signs, so Scorpio and Pisces. I highly recommend looking at your progress chart as well as your solar arc chart. For example, I have got Mars on 15 degree of Pisces, so this should be affecting me quite positively, but I'm gonna let you know how positive it was by the end of March. But firstly, Cancer represents real estate as well as the feeling of security and family. So I can imagine that, let's say you have been struggling to get a mortgage or to find a home that fits your family's needs and expectations. And that stationary energy can act like as an anchor, helping a deal finally stick or to go through, maybe providing some legal breakthroughs needed to secure a property and so forth. I'm capitalizing on this actually because I'm trying to sell a property of mine, a villa, a beautiful villa in Thailand, and I hope that this Jupiter will be helping me quite significantly with that. But I can also imagine, for example, in a corporate setting, a leader who acts as a mentor, that's Jupiterian archetype. to their team, because Cancer represents your family as well. And then we see this massive urge in loyalty and results just by showing a bit of a care towards others. This is not an aggressive position. This is not an alpha male type of position. This is more to do with the protector archetype to be able to shine. So I'm giving you a leadership scenario so that you can understand how it might play out, for example, in your own business. And it's not just about having Cancer on your 10th house, for example. So imagine if it happens in your second house, that could be somehow a connection to, because Sirius is known for bringing fame for everyone, or it brings certain type of a richness to it. So, but this is not necessarily from gambling. That would be more of a Leo, for example. This comes from our roots. So imagine that you have got this old family investment and it might take off a small business you started, basically from your kitchen table, kind of like can go viral with that. You get a lot more attention. And maybe in the second house, it means that I'm going to have to buy more equipment. Maybe you are making waffle with lobsters, for example, from your kitchen table. And then all of a sudden, you've got a lot of orders, and then you cannot keep up anymore with the current equipments that you've got. So this is just one scenario when it comes to the second house. But also, it can be very positive, for example, for your own investment opportunities as well. I do believe that somewhere between March 15 to March 20, silver or gold should go up quite significantly. I believe this is going to be silver. My idea is that it might be hitting a good 100 $105. But we will see, I'm not taking responsibility for anyone's financial um, decisions, but I'm having a feeling that silver will take off quite significantly. Now, Jupiter makes actually a lot of nice aspect too. A trine to Pallas Athene, for example, in the sign of Pisces, we have got the Mercury retro and a trine. We've got Jupiter in trine to Mars as well. So there is a lot of Jupiterian factor happening, and Jupiter is, of course, disposing all the planets in the sign of Pisces. So, on a personal level, the very first one was the Mercury retrograde and the Jupiter, and then we're going to have Mercury making a trine also when it's direct. So, often Mercury is feared for delays. However, a stationary trine, I would say that this is a bit of a correction. It might be an indication that you have been working on a massive project and it might feel a little bit off. And during this retrograde trine, for example, you have got a gut feeling, and that's the Mercury in Pisces. Maybe to go back to an old version of the plan, for example. And because of that trine, a step backward can actually bring you a massive luck or just a massive oversight that saves, let's say, a company, for example, millions of dollars, or and then you are going to be able to get promoted. So this is how we can imagine this type of energy pattern there. Obviously, we've got Pallas Athene in the sign of Pisces as well, and Pallas Athene represents pattern recognition and strategies. In the sign of Pisces, this is very much about a visionary strategy, actually. So maybe it's going to bring you certain type of a healing, for example, or maybe imagine that you have got a healthcare business and it has been struggling with something complex, more of a logistical problems. And then instead of just utilizing the cold data, you become this strategist, that's Pallas Athene, and then we are going to be using a bit of an empathy-driven kind of like design or solution, or more of a spiritual solution to a problem. Of course, Jupiter is backing this up because it's also in a water sign. And then you can actually secure kind of like a grant, for example, and there's the Sirius influence there because, like I said, Sirius is often connected to money as well. Of course, we've got Mars in the sign of Pisces as well, and Mars is often fighting for the underdog and potentially through non-traditional means. So it can indicate an end of a legal matter, for example, and maybe we are going to be able to settle, and then we come out of it kind of nicely. It's this Mars is not about attacking the opponent. This is more about using a strategy, using certain type of transparency, or trying to influence someone in an emotional way. So now, of course, there are plenty of scenarios that I can actually come up with for you in regards to this. But I would say that because Jupiter rules many Piscean planets right now, visualization could be very, very important. What do you want to achieve? And that's going to be the Jupiter and Mars trine as well. How do you want to get ahead in life? And then let's visualize the success there. Let's move towards that because then you might be able to actually attract not only wealth, but very great emotional experiences as well. Jupiter is the experience. Of course, it has got negative sides as well. So it could be about overspending, being overly confident as well. But like I said at the beginning, I want to very utilize the positive meaning of Jupiter in this video connected to that Sirius. Of course, I am very aware of what is going on in the world right now, and that could also indicate that things can escalate even further. But let's look at your natal chart and then try to make great decisions. Firstly, Jupiter is, for example, the planet of experience, but it's also a representation of growth, and it can represent greed as well at the same time. So imagine that you have years of experience in your field, and Jupiter on Sirius is trying to push you to demand, or not to demand, but to get more of an honor, for example, or it is trying to give you that big paycheck, which especially if you are able to back it up with with your historical data as well at the same time. Yes, the risk here is the greed for recognition, and that can make you overreach something. Because Sirius tends to be bringing fame, you can be tempted to take a shortcut to get to that spotlight. Also, Jupiter is the planet of greed, and it could be a greed for security as well. Cancer is a little bit like it's my home, it's my family, it's my safety. So we can see an opportunity to buy out a competitor or to secure a piece of real estate, for example, because your gut feeling is telling you that this is a gold mine. So Jupiter's greed can lead to overexpansion, and then let's say you might buy a house that is too big, or you take on a debt that is too heavy because somehow you are hungry for that status that Sirius is promising you. So of course, I'm still touching base on some of the negative ones because we have to be able to stay away from too risky scenarios. And when Jupiter is connected to Mars as well, Mars is still the archetype of risk taking, so it can kind of hype up Jupiter a little bit. Yeah, let's go for it. Why not? The brave is going to be rewarded somehow. So let's just watch out for that calculated risk part of things. I mean, do you let me know if you have got any planets on 15 degree of Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio? And do let me know how it might affect you at the end of the month, or did you feel anything luck? But one other thing is that water signs are often about emotional experiences. So maybe this is going to be allowing you to set yourself free from an emotional traumatic experience, for example, or maybe this is just a working something through in your subconscious. You feel liberated and then you are able to move on with your life. So don't just focus on the material side of the positive manifestation of Jupiter on Sirius, because you might get super disappointed. And that's another very important keyword here with Jupiter. We often expect more from Jupiter than what it promises or what it can give you. So this is something to be also very aware of. Or often you don't see it immediately because remember Jupiter is going to be sitting on its shadow degrees for the next 3, 4 months. So it might become more visible why this period of time for you is highly beneficial. You can think of Sirius. Sirius is actually a dog star. So for the ancient Greeks, actually, its rising coincided with the hottest, most oppressive days of summer. So therefore, Sirius never represents kind of like a gentle luck. It's very much of a scorching energy. So therefore, often it indicates that something is moving very fast, or we can feel like that the stakes are too high. And then if you are not prepared for this heat, for example, of your own success, then you can easily burn out for that too. In ancient Egypt, the rising of Sirius predicted the flooding of the Nile, for example. So it was the signal that the dry season was over, and therefore the money was kind of coming back because the agriculture got better, right? So therefore, Sirius represents kind of like a reliable system from that cultural point of view. And because Jupiter is stationing on that star in March, entire March 2026. So therefore, it's a perfect time to set up a recurring revenue stream, for example, or a long-term financial foundation, which hopefully can flood your bank account pretty much predictably every year, though. And Sirius is also linked to Anubis. And Anubis was the protector of gates. So you can think of this star as kind of like a celestial bodyguard. So in practical terms, this often looks like having friends in high places. So this month you can experience combined with like Jupiter, combined with Sirius, that you might be able to attract a powerful mentor or someone who is going to be able to guide you on your own path. Now, the name Sirius comes from the Greek word Sirios, which means glowing and scorching. So, like I said, it brings you fame and honors, but often at the cost of your privacy or peace. So again, if you are greedy, for the spotlight, then you will get it, but it will be very bright, very hot. So potentially it's kind of like receiving hot and cold energy at the same time. Because usually Sirius makes things even bigger. And it can make your own mistakes bigger as well. So, well, I would say that if Jupiter is the representation of hunger, then Sirius is bringing the feast. A feast can be very nourishing, but it can be very overwhelming as well. Why? Because maybe your stomach is too full and then you kind of feel like that you want to throw up and, you just want to sleep and then you can sleep away your luck. So I hope that makes sense how this is going to be or how Sirius and Jupiter functions together. Very brief video, but I hope to see you in my next chapter. Take care. Bye bye.